Hello everybody, I'm back with another long overdue YouTube video, and it's going to be a predictions video for Super Bowl 57. I figured with Super Bowl 57 being 20 something hours away from now, I figured get a quick video out for you, giving my predictions. And if there's some details that I might have skipped over or completely forgot about, I apologize in advance. So here we go. The top playoff seeds and conference champions respectively squaring off at University of Phoenix Stadium, the home of the Arizona Cardinals. NFC versus AFC. Philadelphia Eagles versus Kansas City Chiefs. And this is going to be an exciting matchup, if you ask me. Patrick Mahomes Jr. is fresh off his second NFL MVP award win, and he's going to be looking to snap a 9-game losing streak by league MVPs who play in the big game. Whereas on the flip side, you look at the Philadelphia Eagles, they're looking to become the second team in NFL history to win 2 Super Bowls in a 6-year span with a different head coach and a different quarterback. So, if you really think about it, Kansas City is going to a Super Bowl against a team with a much deeper roster, led by a nasty defense, and they have an excellent young coach at the helm. Sounds kind of like the matchup that Kansas City and San Francisco had at Super Bowl 54 to cap off the 2019-2020 NFL season, but that's just me, though. Another side note for this game, I'm going to make this short and sweet. Some people in the liberal, left-leaning media are referring to this game as the Diversity Bowl, just because of the quarterback situation. Jalen Hurts is black and Patrick Mahomes Jr. is half black, so they're on this high horse of saying that 2 black quarterbacks for the first time ever facing off against each other in the Super Bowl, and that's one of the many important pieces going into this game. I don't look at it that way because, in all honesty, I could give a flying rip less what race you are. That doesn't factor into anything one way and or the other. So I'm going to call this game the Kelsey Bowl, because you have Jason Kelsey from Philadelphia and you have Travis Kelsey in Kansas City, and they're facing off against each other. And I think this is also the first time in NFL history where 2 brothers from an active roster are going to be facing off against each other. The first time 2 brothers ever faced off against each other, I want to say, was in Super Bowl 47, with what they called the Harbaugh Bowl. John Harbaugh versus Jim Harbaugh. John Harbaugh was the coach of the Baltimore Ravens and still is. And Jim Harbaugh was the coach of the San Francisco 49ers at the time. So, the second time in 10 years that a set of brothers go up against each other in the Super Bowl, but the first time ever, the brothers are a part of an active roster. So, 2 times in 10 years you have a set of brothers going up against each other in the Super Bowl. Who would have thought? So, as we get ready to go into the, as I'll call it, Kelsey Bowl, both of these teams are constructed very differently. Kansas City's got a number of their key players from the Super Bowl 54 roster still at the helm. You have Patrick Mahomes Jr., you have Travis Kelsey, Chris Jones, Frank Clark at defensive end, and a host of others. Whereas the Philadelphia Eagles, they only have 7 players from their team that won Super Bowl 52 in the 2017-2018 season on the roster. 2 special teams players, 2 defensive linemen, and 3 offensive linemen. With the vast majority of that team is gone too. So both teams boast all pro quarterbacks, as well as each conference's highest scoring offense in terms of points per game. So, in terms of the quarterback battle, it's going to be interesting. I mean, who's going to get the upper hand out of Patrick Mahomes Jr. and Jalen Hurts? That's going to be one of the things I'm looking for. And everyone's like, well, looking at Patrick Mahomes Jr. going into this game, how do you feel about him? I have extreme faith in him. I think, especially after he's going to be getting a little more than plenty enough time to prepare and rest his ankle. I mean, he's had a little more than 2 weeks or so. So he should be going into this game ready to go. If not completely at 100%, he should be in at between 95 and 99%. He's not gonna let something like what his high ankle sprain hamper his decision as far as not being able to play at last minute. Excuse me. I also have faith in Andy Reid, who ironically is going up against his former team, and at the same time, the one and only time that the Eagles ended up going to a Super Bowl under Andy Reid was the 2004-2005 season where they lost to the New England Patriots. That was Super Bowl 39, I believe. Yeah, the 2005-2006 NFL season had Super Bowl 40, and that was when the Seahawks lost to the Pittsburgh Steelers. So yeah, Super Bowl 39. And the Philadelphia Eagles, they had Brian Dawkins, Brian Westbrook, Donovan McNabb, and Terrell Owens, and a host of others on the roster. But that's a different story for a different day, a completely different roster and ancient history at this point. But anyway, going back to Kansas City, the last 4 seasons of the, as I'll call it, Patrick Mahomes Jr. and Andy Reid era have finished this way. 2 overtime losses in the AFC Championship game and 2 Super Bowl appearances. 1 win and 1 loss. The loss being a Super Bowl 55 and the victory being a Super Bowl 54. And going into Super Bowl 55, I figured the game was going to be a close one, but Kansas City's offensive line was overmatched, decimated, and just flat out got their butts kicked in the shipyard by the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. But now that Tom Brady's no longer in the picture and finally retiring again at the age of 45 and a half, it's not really going to matter much now. But that being said, Kansas City has been decimated with injuries, and including the high ankle sprain to Patrick Mahomes Jr. Some people are saying Kansas City's just limping into this game, and they're not at 100%. But we'll see how wounded they really are. And they're saying some people are saying they're the figurative wounded animal, but we'll see. We'll see just how wounded these guys really are. But looking at the AFC Championship game between Cincinnati and Kansas City, you could still make the argument that number 15 had mobility and he was still able to throw when given the chance, albeit his mobility was temporarily limited. But with the extended break between the respective championship games and the Super Bowl, Patrick Mahomes Jr. is given a little bit of a further chance to get healthy, have some mobility, and continue to go over tape, practice, and do whatever else he can, if anything, to try and get ready. So, the Philadelphia Eagles have one of the top pass rushes in the entire NFL, and that's going to force number 15 to throw the ball and throw it fast. It's going to be important to monitor the Kansas City offensive line and how they're going to be able to hold up against Philadelphia's defense. 'Cause Philadelphia's defense is mean. I wouldn't want to go up against any of these guys on a dark alley. So, this, in my opinion, this Super Bowl here is Patrick Mahomes Jr.'s moment. It could also be a time where the now retired Tom Brady finally passes the figurative baton to number 15 probably for the next 10 to 12 or 13 more years. I mean, Tom Brady was always a big-time clutch player in the history of the Super Bowl, but now that Tom Brady finally decided to retire for the second year in a row, and at 45 and a half, he finally decided to he finally decided to hang it up and file the paperwork eligible, for saying he's going to be retiring. And at the same time, Tampa Bay takes a $35.5 million cap hit, which is another story for another time. Patrick Mahomes Jr. could become the toughest player in the game's history, even with a high ankle sprain. But as an MVP in the league, I expect him to get the ball out quickly in order to avoid pressure from Philadelphia. But it's going to be one of those. I'll say at times it's going to be one of those dink and dunk type of games for him. But then again, in fairness, he's shown all season he's more than capable of taking what the defense gives him and not forcing the ball down the field. So, looking at things on the perspective of the Philadelphia Eagles, they've been led by a strong run game, and on top of that, you got the quarterback play of Jalen Hurts. I mean, he's continuing to live up to his last name and hurt teams, no pun intended, with his legs while extending passing plays and throwing the ball down the field in order to force a secondary to play deeper than normal. Much like everybody else, people are saying this is going to be a high-scoring affair, and I couldn't disagree with that. Or I couldn't disagree with anyone saying that I think this team's going to win because of this or that team's going to win because of that. But we're all in agreement on this. This will be a high-scoring game, but with a high-scoring game, I think that helps out Kansas City overall. Thriving in high-pressure situations like this is what they're looking forward to. But as far as Philadelphia, though, the overall inside-out construction of this team is going to be on full display tomorrow night, and it's going to be one of those cases where everybody watching, especially if you're a Philadelphia Eagles fan, you look at the TV and you say, okay, you made it this far. Now what? Show us what you're made of. Excuse me. And I think as far as on the offense, they're going to pass a lot, and on the defense, they're going to sack. As far as Patrick Mahomes Jr., so with Philadelphia passing and sacking in the first half in order to possibly get the lead, that's going to be a key for them. But after that, they're just going to run, especially in the second half in order to try and maintain the lead and or build an even bigger one. But on the other hand, something tells me that they'll probably continue one of the most, if not the most, lopsided playoff runs in history. After beating an overmatched New York Giants team and a San Francisco 49ers team without their star quarterback. All thanks to the defensive line of Philadelphia. But that being said, Kansas City's defense versus Philadelphia's offense, and Philadelphia's defense versus Kansas City's offense, those are going to be some rather interesting matchups going into tomorrow night. Who's going to get the upper hand? We won't know until the game time reaches 0 minutes and 0 seconds and the fourth quarter is over, or overtime is over if it gets that far. A couple of quick, bold predictions here. Philadelphia's defense is going to probably limit Kansas City's vaunted, excellent, dangerous offense to fewer than 250 yards. Which leads into Travis Kelce, in my book. As much as I like Travis Kelce, Patrick Mahomes Jr. has to throw to other players also. But the question is, who though? Isaiah Pacheco? Yeah, possible. Marquez Valdez-Scantling and or Juju Smith-Schuster? Yeah, I can see that. But as far as Travis Kelce goes, he's the go-to man, so to say, for number 15. He's the top guy, the top card in the deck. If he's lucky, I predict he catches between 11 to 14 passes, but only gets about maybe altogether go for maybe 150 yards. If he's lucky, he gets a little bit more than that, but if Philadelphia's defense is able to ratchet up the pressure on Travis Kelce, it's going to be a long night for the offense on Kansas City. and also for Patrick Mahomes Jr. as well. I mean, this is going to be a sight to see, especially on the offensive side. Another prediction I have for wide receivers on Philadelphia. A.J. Brown goes absolutely crazy. He averages 88 and a half, I think, receiving yards per game was what a stat was that I saw earlier. So A.J. Brown averages 88 and a half yards, receiving yards per game, and in 2 playoff games, he's got 50 yards total. But I think he's going to exceed that. Because if you look at the defensive end for Kansas City, Trent McDuffie and Jalen Watson, 2 rookies, they've been playing extremely well for Kansas City. And as we all know, Jalen Hurts is an excellent deep ball thrower. But Kansas City is going to be more vulnerable to medium-range passes and short-range passes. So they have to keep an eye out for Jalen Hurts at all times. Devontae Smith, Dallas Goedert, and there's another wide receiver. I can't think of his name now. I already forgot what those other wide receivers' name was, so never mind. Dallas Goedert and Devontae Smith are also available for Jalen Hurts to throw to, so Kansas City's corners have to keep in mind A.J. Brown's not the only wide receiver on the roster that Jalen Hurts is able to throw to. He's got a host of other players as well. And also, don't forget, he's also got the running backs that can run through you too. Boston Scott, I think, is one of them, and the other one is, I want to say his name is Miles Sanders, if I remember correctly. But anyway. Bold prediction number 3. Andy Reid gets revenge over his former team. You could make the argument that Andy Reid knows the Philadelphia Eagles inside and out. But on the other hand, it's one of those things where you can also look at the team and say, well, this is now and that was then. Just because he used to be the former coach of the team doesn't mean he knows them from... He doesn't know everybody and their mother that's on the roster from a hole in the wall. Now, if it was still the roster from the 2004-2005 season that lost in Super Bowl 39, then it would make sense. But that's not gonna really matter much now. But overall, it's Andy Reid's former team versus his current team. And something tells me that Kansas City pulls off the win and Andy Reid gets revenge against his former team. That being said, for a final score, I don't want to say something too crazy or off the top of my head because you never know how the Super Bowl is going to go. But I'm going to say Kansas City wins by a score of 30-27. And a little more than a week and a half ago or so, I saw Kansas City was a favorite. I want to say at 2.5 points or 3, and the last I looked, they were a favorite at 1. It was either 1 point or 1.5 points. But then again, you look up 10 different point spreads, you'll get 10 different results. Some are saying the Eagles are a favorite, and others are saying Kansas City's a favorite. So take that for what you will. But that being said, may the best team win. Hopefully it's the Kansas City Chiefs, but if Philadelphia wins, will I be disappointed? Yes, but we won't know anything until the game's officially over with. So that being said, hopefully you guys have a good night tonight. Hopefully you have fun at whatever Super Bowl parties or whatever else you may have going on during that time tomorrow night. And get ready to see some fireworks go off at University of Phoenix Stadium. It's going to be a sight to see. So, be well, stay safe, and whenever the time comes, I'll post another video onto my channel. What it's going to be about, I have no idea, but we'll we'll talk about it then. So, have yourselves a great night. Let me know your thoughts on who you think is going to win the Super Bowl, and I will talk to you when I talk to you, and I will see you whenever it is that I see you next. So, have fun, and I'm out.